right, guys, welcome to our 10-year celebration, virtual celebration party. Man, for those of you, if as you're watching the replay, if you're not sure what we are talking about, this is not 10-year wedding anniversary or anything like that. We're way past that. Today actually marks 10 years ago that we opened up the doors for the first time and we had our first English services when it comes to our church, because our church for over 30 years now has been predominantly a Spanish-speaking, Spanish-only community. And 10 years ago, we decided God called us and to be able to start something a little different, kind of venture off into something we have never done before, something that we did not expect that we would be doing. And here we are 10 years later. And so that's a weird number, isn't it?
It is. It is weird.
How do you feel?
It's a little surreal. Like I feel like it was just yesterday. Like it doesn't feel like 10 years has gone by, and we started out with Josue as barely, not even a year old. Like he was turning a year old a few weeks after we started the church, and now we're down to 3 kids, and Josue is going to be 11 now in June. So it seems like just yesterday, but
no, because that's the interesting thing for us has been the growing the ministry, growing the church, while growing a family all at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. But so we just wanted to hop on because we know there's just a lot that we thought it would be how fitting to be able to celebrate this by telling some of the stories, maybe by telling some of the lessons that we've experienced. And so I don't know. I mean, out of the 10 years, what's one story that stands out?
Only one?
No, I know.
Wow. Well, I mean, the most memorable ones are starting having the little room that we were in, and people not knowing what we were doing in there, and always like, what is the pastor's son doing in this room with 4 or 5 people every Sunday?
Let me explain that. All right. So first off, all right. Let's maybe mention right before that. Okay. And then we'll get to that point. The ramp up to this was, we had just gotten married. This was in 2008, maybe, when we were told. Yeah, and
2009 we were told. We got married in 2007.
Yeah, that's right. So it was 2009. So yeah, 2 years deep. 2 years in is when my dad, who is still the senior pastor of the church, he told me, it's like, hey, I really feel like our church needs to start expanding, doing something a little bit beyond Spanish. I don't feel like I'm the guy to do it. Do you want to do it? That was literally the ask. And it was weird because I was the worship leader at that time. It had been for a few years now. And it was weird because I knew the second that he said it, I wasn't thinking this. I didn't want the position. And the second he had said, do you want it? There was a part of me that said, why do I feel curious? Like, oh my gosh, it's like, and I almost knew at that moment, this is what God wanted me to do. And so that was an interesting conversation we had because it was something that we both felt and we knew God was telling us to go in this direction, but was it that we weren't sure? Or we were scared? Or
scared for sure. Scared and knowing that...
all of the above?
All of the above. Scared, nervous, not knowing what to expect, not knowing how we were going to do this. We knew that this wasn't when you're kids and you play house or you play pretend. We knew this is not playing church. These are people's lives that are being put in our, in our care to a certain extent. And that was not something to just take lightly.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely the scary part there, was that it's like, especially when God calls you to do something, he's not going to call you to do something that you can handle on your own. So he is going to call you to do something, to believe in such a way, to be like Peter, step out in the boat. Hey, you want to walk on water, kind of a thing. And this is where you begin to rely on the grace of God. And so that was one of those things where I was like, oh man, he's really asking. And because we knew God, we was like, all right, even though we were nervous, we felt unqualified, we didn't feel, I think it was yet more of the unworthiness side of it, but then and the gratitude side of it. And we said yes because we had a heart for God, and we know, and we were like, all right, God, I know that if you're calling us to do this, and so and we actually had a talk how long ago? Maybe a couple of weeks like
Yeah,
saying,
2 weeks ago.
yeah, like 2 weeks ago, talking about like, why did we say yes 10 years ago? Like we were thinking about this. Why did we say yes? We said yes because we loved God. And then we were at, which is obviously, right? It was like, all right, God's telling us to do this. I trust him. So, all right, we said yes. And then I asked the question, why are we still here?
Yes.
Because the average pastor stays at a church, I think it's like 6 years or something like that, 10 years in. So why have we continually said yes? And you said, what? Well, you said a lot, and then I summed it up. But we said yes at the first time because we had a heart for God.
Right.
And we've said yes every single year because God has given us an even greater heart for people.
Right. He has expanded my heart for his people, for his sons and daughters. People pray that prayer, Lord, give me your eyes, break my heart for what breaks yours. And literally that is what he has done with me, with us, is he's given me his heart for his people, where it's like that's what motivates me. Any time that I feel like this is getting too hard, I want to quit, I think about the lives that that he has allowed us to be a part of, that we have seen transformed. And that's what keeps us going every year, is that God has given us a heart for his people and to see his people be saved. Yeah, so
that was really cool. And so when we said yes, there was, at the very, very beginning, there was very little turnaround time. And so for those, if you're watching, whether on YouTube or you're watching us on Facebook, welcome. We are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of since we started this church and started the English side. We're just celebrating, sharing some of our favorite stories. But at the very beginning, it was weird because we didn't have, we just knew it was like, all right, go and you're gonna start in 6 months. Like it was
very short.
And it was on Mother's Day. We were gonna start on Mother's Day. Turns out a few years later, I found out that one of the worst, like I don't know if this is true or not, but one of the worst times to launch a church is on Mother's Day. So it's like,
we didn't know that at the time, obviously.
Whatever. So we did it. And we did it in the main building and everything. And so what was I gonna say? And so, but prior to that, we weren't sure what, how was it gonna look like, what we were gonna do. And we actually ventured off. It wasn't just us. We ventured off with 6 other friends. It was my brother, sister-in-law, and 2 of my best friends and their wives. And that happened for how long? Maybe a couple of years, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was one of the stories that we've shared along just the journey, and everything was, we started out the 8 of us. And then little by little, the 8 became 6, and the 6 became 4, and the 4 then just became the 2 of us. And we weren't sure. Like we were super confused. Like we were like, God, what was this? I thought you wanted us to do this together. Like what's happening? We were really confused. And we were seeing God taking people, taking our friends and our and our family and taking them to do other stuff. And then we're like, this wasn't a part of the plan. I was like, I don't oh wow. Like, and we really felt alone. We felt frustrated. We felt confused. We didn't know. And one of the things that we came to understand years later, and I listened to a podcast from Mike Todd 2 weeks ago, because it turns out Mike Todd from Transformation Church experienced the same thing. He went off, he transitioned to be the senior pastor, and a lot of the people that were there, they just stuck with him. Most didn't. And he said something that I'm like, he was able to verbalize something that I felt. And I'm like, wow, okay. He was like saying, I had you guys start off together, but then I removed them. This is God talking to Mike Todd. I removed them because I needed this to be like your mission. And I started thinking about that. I was like, wow, and in fact, we were talking about this. Like one of the biggest things that all of our friends did was, if it was just the 2 of us, if I'm telling you, I would have said no.
Yeah.
Like we would have said no if it was just, hey, you 2 go. I'm like, no. And like, we would have said no. And so the fact that God brought friends with us, I felt like encouraged us to do something that we wouldn't have done alone. And so I think that was, I really felt that they were fulfilled.
Everything should be on.
Let me see. Hold on. We'll fix this real quick. All right. We're double checking. If Emily, Aldo, if you guys are all watching, can you hear us? So let us know. All right. But we were, what was I saying? Oh yeah, it's like and I felt like that was the purpose that they were supposed to play, was to help us, to launch, to be there at the beginning, because we wouldn't have. And so, all right, Emily says you can hear us real cool.
Yeah,
So
then maybe check your volume. It could be on your end.
so I thought that was interesting, and then it makes me think and wonder. It's like, that's what God does, right? There's sometimes God brings people in your life for a time, for a season, and sometimes then God moves them and removes them, and you don't know why. Yeah. But in the end, or sometimes you complain. It's like, why, God? I really like them here. Why? I thought we were gonna, I don't know. But that's encouraging. That sometimes God definitely He'll bring people for a time. And it's okay. So that was the pre. All right. Then we start day one, but we almost didn't start day 1.
Yes, because you almost died.
I almost died. Okay. And so if you don't know the story, I almost died before the church even was birthed. Okay. I mean, no cap, for real. I'm not joking. I'm not even exaggerating. Right. This is not like that. The guy saying exaggerating. He caught a fish who was this big, and he said, "Oh, it was this big." No, I almost died. And so I had caught a staph infection in my hip, in a muscle deep down inside my back hip. It's called the iliopsoas muscle. It connects your femur, your femur and your tailbone and your hip or something like that. It's like one of those deep interconnected bones. I think I got the staph infection because I was taking out the garbage barefoot.
We're always barefoot.
I was taking it out barefoot outside of my garage, and I had broken a glass and I had put it in the trash can. Well, apparently me walking around, one of the glass cut through the bottom of the garbage bag, and I just stepped on it on my heel, just clean, felt it like that, right in. Yeah. And I knew it. I'm like, oh no. And so it obviously hurt. And that was in the garbage, and so I took it out. We didn't go to the hospital or nothing like that. I just cleaned him up. Yeah, I just cleaned it, Band-Aid, boom. What, like 2 weeks later? Or a week later? A week or so later, I go play basketball. I was a teacher at Cambridge Christian School, and I'm playing basketball, and I hadn't played basketball in years with a bunch of, freshmen and sophomores. And I hadn't run like that in years. And I knew the next day I'm going to feel it. And I did. I definitely felt it. And as the day went on, which was really weird, my back started hurting more and more, started getting tighter and tighter. And as the day went on, I was having a more pronounced limp. Like, it was just an annoyance. And then by the end of the school day, I had a big limp. Like, I could barely move. I was like, what is this? So I was like, yo, I must have slid a disc or something. Like, I didn't know. I get in my car. I drive all the way here, which was about a 45-minute drive. And
this was on a Friday.
This was on a Friday, and that's when I pull in, I get out of my car. I get out of my car only to realize that my left leg was done. Like, it did not move, and it was excruciating. In fact, I fell up against the wall, then fell up against the hood of the car, confused. I mean, let me ask you, what would your reaction be if you go to move your leg and it's not going anywhere, and it just hurts? And so I had to call her. She, like the champ that she is, pretty much put me on her back and carried me inside. So that's all that cheerleading training from back in the day kicked in. And it was hard. And so it was really weird. It was confusing. We had people coming over. It was getting worse and worse. I mean, it was excruciating. And I've never, I feel like I'm a wuss when I get sick. I'm sorry. I'm a wuss when I get sick, but when I get hurt, I'm not a wuss. I'm not a wuss at all. And this had me in tears, and it was the whole time consistent. And it just kept on getting worse and worse. And so we had somebody come and give me a massage. This is now Saturday or something like that. And it just was dead weight. It hurt so bad. I had to preach the next Sunday. That same Sunday, I had to preach.
On the Spanish.
In the Spanish service.
The English had not started.
Yeah, we hadn't started yet. We had plans to, but So I go and I preach in the Spanish service in a wheelchair because I could not move. It was they just pulled one out because I just couldn't stand. I preached the whole thing in a wheelchair. I go home, I go to my parents' house, I take a nap, I wake up with a 105 fever. And that's when we knew something was up. I went to the doctors, found out I had a staph infection. Hospital. Found out we had a staph infection. I was shaking, trembling. I had never had a fever that high before. My body was just totally whacked out. Turned out that's when they found the staph infection. I could not have surgery, so they ended up putting a PICC line, which I still have the scar right here, into my heart because they were saying that if the infection would have got into my blood, if it didn't attack that muscle, it would have got into my blood, into my heart, I would have died. And I still have it today, so I had a PICC line in there. I was in the hospital all week. I lost 20 pounds that week. I didn't eat for the whole week, I just couldn't. And
he ate oranges.
Orange slices, that was it. And I literally had to, when I got out of the hospital, my leg still didn't work. I had to learn how to walk all over again, in essence. Like the muscle had been so damaged that in fact it's the key muscle that does that motion that brings up the leg. So I had to have a wheelchair for quite a while.
Yeah. Then a walker.
Yeah, well, I had a wheel for quite, and she became pretty much, a pro nurse because she was changing out my dressings, right? I mean, how was that? Like how did you feel going through all of that? Because I'm still in the walker, I can't do nothing.
Yeah.
And it still isn't, excruciating pain. I'm just feeling better. I got the infection down, but my muscle was still damaged. So, how are you processing all that? Because we had a newborn baby. Josue was
not even a year old yet.
Yeah.
He learned how to walk on your walker. We actually have video of that. And it was weird because I'm a new mom, I'm a new wife, and my husband's extremely sick. I had to do I had to bathe him, dress him and the baby. It was hard. It was one of those moments where you realize your vows, for better, for worse, through sickness and health. Like I was like
2 years in, bro.
I was like, wow, no time wasted. We're getting in. We're getting dirty. This is work. We're putting in work. But I would definitely do it all over again. It was worth it. It was weird. I had to when he had to go back to work. I had to go to work with him.
She had to push me around. She had to wheel me around.
Wheelchair, and I had to change his
dressings. Yeah, that's why.
At school. So I became like his 24-hour. Care nurse.
Yep. And the dressing was because I had to have a portable IV. I had a portable IV that was pretty much a fanny pack. I had to wear a fanny pack wherever I went, which was pumping the medicine, the antibiotics, straight into my arm, into my heart, and had to stay like that. And so I went from having to go in a wheelchair and eventually with a walker. And literally, that's how I got around, with an old man walker. I'm in 27 with an old man walker. And then moving on to a cane. And then, this was a process of 6 months, something like that, or even longer. Like took me over a year to finally jog or something like that. But what was crazy is that on our first day, May 9th, 2010, I had to preach my first sermon with an IV connected to me and a cane. I preached my first sermon with a cane. I wish I still had that cane.
We had to explain. No, it was Papum's. You borrowed it from Papum.
I need to have that cane. I had to, and so it was weird because, first off, I was like, here I am. I'm like, bro, is the pastor wearing a fanny pack? I'm like, listen, guys, I'm trying not to die. I'm trying not to die right now. And so it was a weird thing to do, preaching with a cane and an IV hooked up, with my leg not working. So, and I really felt like God, I don't think that God brought that upon me, but God allowed it to happen. And it started making me wonder. I was like, God, well, first off, why? And so why at the very beginning does this thing get sabotaged almost? Because it felt like it was gonna. We didn't push it off daily. We just plowed through it and we did it. And I felt like that image burned in my brain. And I've got us, I felt like it's been a lifelong lesson in the sense of, if you're going to do this, because I had the image of the cane and the IV, if you're going to walk this way, if you're going to follow me, if you're going to do what I'm calling you to do, you're going to need to know that you can't do this on your own. I have a limp. In essence, I have almost Abraham, Jacob had that perpetual limp. I felt like God was saying, listen, you got a limp, bro. You have a limp. You have to lean on me. The way I had to lean on that cane. And I need to allow, again, God to fill me. In the same way that IV was connected in me to combat all the negative things, to kind of save me, restore me, make me. I felt like you need to tap into me and the Holy Spirit like that 24/7. I need that, His love, His grace, just constant pumping in my veins to combat anything that the enemy is trying to do inside. Spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And so that was an image that I've just tried to, honestly, it's been a prayer for 10 years, saying, God, help me never to forget to lean on you, and help me never to forget to just keep, getting what I need. And then, the fact that it's also my right arm, it's like my dominant, this is what I am, righty. And so I thought that was even in my strength to remember not to trust in my own strength, but to trust in His. So I thought that was cool. So I preached my first sermon with a cane and a fanny pack, but after a few weeks, maybe a few months,
No,
About a week or so.
About a month or two.
All right, it was about a month in that we were doing all in the main stage in the main sanctuary of our building over on Lynn Road, and
that fits hundreds of people.
yeah, I don't know. By then it had like 350. Right now it fits like 5. And they were like, all right, look, because we were going before the Spanish service, and there was some complications, and I'm like, look, there's only maybe 10 people coming, and it's a room of like 350.
It was kind of awkward to be in a huge sanctuary with like 10 people and then 10 people spread out. It seemed like there was like
they were social distancing 10 years ago and they didn't have to. And so in essence they said, look, there's a room over here. We have an empty room that fits about 40 people. Go have at it. Just be out before we need to start. Kind of in essence. And so we did. That's that room she was talking about. And the thing is that like when the Spanish church released us, they blessed us. We really didn't have this mentality or understanding that, hey, we're one church with 2 languages. It was like our own church. And so we were in that room and people would kind of constantly be opening the door like,
sorry.
We didn't
know there was a church.
They didn't know they were like, what's going on over here? Like, what's this? Like people were yakking, chatting up. You know how Hispanics are, bro. So I was like, the cafe was like right outside the door. Everyone's yakking it up. It's, oh my gosh. And so it was constant, and it was always the loudest right when we were praying, wrapping up our service, because that's when everybody else was showing up. So it was weird, it was weird, but we were there for a few years, and man, those were
good memories. Are you gonna cry?
Yeah,
I'm about to cry too. Oh my god. Sorry, guys.
Cool. That was cool. I mean, because I don't know, like it was nothing. I mean, it was just literally a legit hole in the wall. We had an hour, and I don't know, just seeing so many people come through.
Yeah.
Even though it was dozens, it wasn't a lot. I mean, people come and go, but I don't know. I mean, it was there where we met a lot of the people that made a really big impact in our lives. We saw God do a lot of amazing things through them. That's when it was around that time we met John, right?
Yeah. And
John Melendez, Ann and Greg. I'm gonna tell Greg's story. I'm sorry, bro. I'm gonna tell your story. All right, I'm gonna tell your story. Oh, Helen, Bonnie, and Terry. So when we saw Michael and Liliana. Michael and Liliana were starting to come around then. And so many other people. I mean, who am I missing? I mean, there's just so many. Well, around that time, who else were we really interacting with?
Tracy and Dave.
Oh yeah, Tracy and Dave. Alex, bro, I remember you. You were a little jit, man, with the long hair, and now you're just a dude, golly, man. Yeah, there was so much. It was so. And look, forgive me if you're watching a replay, and I'm not mentioning you. I know I'm not mentioning you at all, but yeah, one of my favorite little mini stories was Ann and Greg, because Ann was coming for a while, and then she brought her husband Greg over, and I remember I'll never forget meeting Greg for the first time, because he goes and he gives me he goes to shake my hand as I'm saying bye to everybody on the way out, and he looks at me and like, I'm one tough nut to crack. Have a good day. And I was like, I ain't trying to crack you, bro. I remember I was like, it's okay. I'm not trying to crack you. I'm glad you showed up. I'm glad you're here. And it was fun seeing him coming back. And then it was cool seeing Greg give his life to Jesus. And
God cracked his nut.
I'm like, oh, okay. And it was fun. And so now I always say that, I got to, talk to him not too long ago and send that message. It was like, Greg's my favorite nut that cracked. Okay. It was so cool. And so it was amazing to see just all of that. I mean, our time in that little chapel and time in that little room was very
humbling.
Yes, it was humbling. It was very formative. I mean, a lot happened, because that's when, again, that's when all of the, kind of, felt alone and were, struggling here and there and this and that. But what was amazing was literally every year we saw more and more people coming to Jesus. I mean, it was slow, but I'm glad it was slow, because
God knew what
we couldn't have handled it.
Yeah,
we couldn't with extra kids and this and that. I was still working a full-time job. I mean, I was working 2 jobs, and I couldn't have handled anything bigger. And so, but it was, I was so grateful because by the end of the 5-year mark, 80% of the church was made up of unchurched people. If you don't understand, that's huge, okay? 80% of the church was unchurched people, meaning they were either people who, this was their first experience in church ever, and they're regulars and they're coming back, or this was, they had left church a long time ago and were coming back. I love that what God was doing there. So eventually from there, I'm trying to think if there was anything else around that time and so from there, obviously we were kind of filling out that room. And the Spanish church and both congregations saw a need to say, hey, let's expand the building. And so they built the current building in the back of the, what we call the chapel, behind the main building right now. And we have been there for about 5 years.
Yes, and before the floors went in, something we did, which is pretty amazing,
Yeah.
is that every name that we mentioned earlier that was with us in that little chapel, we got to go over and we prayed over the building, and we got to put Bible verses all over the concrete before they laid the floor. And so it's amazing that underneath that wood floor, there's everyone's names prayers and promises that God gave these people that started with us, that supported us, and that till this day a lot of them still support us and are still with us in our lives in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's just
cool.
Amazing.
I love that detail.
Amazing.
I love that detail we did on that. And so we were there, and so now when we were in the chapel, we saw things changing even some more. That's when we started. Who were like Troy and Vanessa, but I think Troy and Vanessa were already being there before, right?
Yeah, they
came
the chapel right
too?
Before we.
Troy and Vanessa were coming around a lot. This is now when Grace and Ugos that's when they started coming around. This was Dave and Dave and Becky, Mike and Don, right? All those other people.
Emily and Marilyn started coming around there.
And so that was really cool, seeing even more and more people coming around, seeing again God continue to do things and we did not know what we were doing. This is flat out be honest, we did not know. And it was so cool, literally seeing every year.
We didn't know what we were doing, like strategic wise,
yes.
like how to. But we just knew we loved God and we loved people,
and we just kept it simple.
We just kept saying, "Yes, Lord, here we are.
Yeah.
Use us." And we saw God. That's how we know that this is all God, because He's the only one that could have done what was happening.
Yep.
Or it was amazing.
That was, yeah.
It was really cool.
So but then. Like after when we got to the chapel, because we had been seeing again every year, we had been like there's been trajectory up. Like we'd see new lives coming to Jesus, new lives coming to Jesus, new lives coming to Jesus, new lives coming to Jesus. We come into the chapel, and things started to, plateau off, and then downward. And I remember there was one Easter Sunday, I'll never forget. It was our first Easter in the chapel. Do you remember that one?
Of course, because we both went home crying.
Crying day
our eyes out.
Ever. It was our first Easter in the chapel. I mean, we were like, yo, this is our first, we'd already done Easter for a couple years. First, we actually have 3 times the amount of space. I mean, we got, I don't know, whatever. It's just a different scenario. So we got excited. And we're like, okay, now more people, we can invite more people and see what's going to happen. And people did come. But it was like one thing after another was, we were late because something stopped working. Everything literally shut down. Everything shut down. The lights were going on and off. It was a disaster. The only thing that I was waiting for happen was for ceiling tiles to fall on people's heads. I was so flustered. I was so distracted. I was so, even just the message itself, it was just, I don't know what it was. It was just so much happening that I felt I had no control of. And it was weird. It just felt like we just showed up, did something, and everyone just went home. Yeah. And I'm like, what was that? And I don't know what I don't know if it's, I think there was a lot in there. I think we got so distracted. It was like a combo of stuff. We got so distracted and caught up with, okay, so it's a new building, so there's new needs and there's more. And our hope and our approach has never been, hey, what's gonna save people? Lights and flash. Right. That's never been us. And so we weren't focusing on putting on a show or on a production, but it was just, I don't know, it was just one thing after another. And I remember we both got in the car and we just drove and cried the whole time. It was like, we felt like we let God down. We felt like we let all those people down. And it was like we felt like the worst. Like, and in fact, I don't know if you know, but Monday tends to be the number one day where pastors tend to quit. It's just Monday, and we almost came close. In fact, but I know, I really feel like I know now, looking back, I know the root of why that happened. Because by now, I think that was what, year 6, 7? I think it was year 6. Around year 6, wow, no wonder. All right, so around almost year 7, this was getting close to year 7, we were hitting a wall. And now this is 3 kids deep. We were having some financial issues. Ain't no problem to say that. I was overwhelmed at work. Being a high school teacher, it was just stressing me out. And then obviously pastor job was a stressful job too. You weren't doing well because we only had one car. She stayed home all the time. She was mentally not doing well because
I was very depressed.
Yeah, you couldn't leave the house. You were just stuck. You had no human contact, no human interaction with anybody. So and it was a really and we worked all the time. Like, I did not take days off.
We didn't know what taking a Sabbath was. We worked Monday through Sunday.
I worked 7 days a week. And I was hitting year 7. And this is when everything just started going to crap. I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it. Everything was just, nothing was working. Our marriage was not doing well. The church wasn't doing well. Me as a teacher wasn't doing well. Like, literally, they were going to fire me. I'm like, look, you're just not pulling your weight. But we're going to give you one more year. And I've never had an employer tell me that. Like, I've always done my best. I've always, killed it. And I was just, every phase in life, I felt like I was failing. Every phase. And we almost quit.
Yeah.
All right. And no wonder when they say it's, hey, around the year 6, 7 mark, that's when pastors tend to quit. And we almost did. We almost did. We almost became a statistic. But I remembered like when it came to us, what really triggered everything was honestly it was here. Mm-hmm. Because we realized that, there was things that we weren't doing that we should have been doing. We weren't prioritizing our relationship with each other. We weren't prioritizing anything. There was no priorities. It was just do and randomness and we were just exhausted.
There was no rhyme or rhythm to anything we just did. And we were unhappy. Very robotic, very just, this is what we have to do, let's just do it. And it was just, I don't know, very predictable.
Yeah. But, and we were unhappy. Yeah. Not doing well mentally. We weren't taking care of ourselves physically. I had ballooned up to the biggest that I've ever gotten, which was in the 230s. And I hadn't worked out in years. We weren't doing anything. So, everything. It was just, we were running on fumes. And around that time, that's when we started to implement something. I can't remember. I wish I remember what triggered it. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was like a sermon that I read or something that I heard or a verse that I read. But we started implementing a weekly Sabbath every time. And I was like, you know what? There's going to be 24 hours that I'm not going to work. I'm not going to do an email. I'm not going to study this. Take a call. I'm not going to work on my sermon on Saturday. And I started implementing certain little things. We started having that. We started having a regular date. And when we didn't even go on dates. Like, we did nothing. And so we just started, we just stayed here at the house. We put the kids down and just started having date nights here, watching TV and going outside in the backyard and talking, just doing things like that. But when we started adding that rest into our rhythm, I started to see that God finally, something started happening at school. Something started happening at church. That God was actually doing more and we were doing less.
And we took the sabbatical.
No, I was getting there. We were doing more, God was doing more while we were doing less. And even though, things were getting better, but we were still not yet. Something wasn't there. And I really felt, when did I do this? The sabbatical. When did we do that? Our anniversary.
It was 2017.
2017, so 3 years ago.
It was our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah. It was going to be our 10-year wedding anniversary. It was 10-year wedding anniversary and 7 year of the church at that point. And I was like, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a sabbatical. And I really felt that God told me, you need to take 3 months. 3 months.
I thought he was crazy, I'm not going to lie. I was like, that's not going to work.
You are not going to. Now, what I was like, you're not going to preach for 3 whole months. That's what God told me. You're not going to preach for 3 months. You're not going to work for 3 months, other than just little things here and there, but not really. But and it was weird because I started feeling guilty. I'm like, it was like, who does that? Like, are people going to think something of me? Like, who does he think he's who do you think he is, taking 3 months off? And people were confused. Some people, but I talked to my church. I explained to the church. Everybody understood. They understood. Some people didn't get it, but I really felt like if we didn't quit temporarily, we would have quit permanently.
Yeah. And
we really needed that. And at the end of those 3 months, where we did nothing but we hung out with the family, we caught up, we rested,
we took a second honeymoon. We went to Punta Cana.
We took a second honeymoon. That's when we started going camping.
Yeah.
That's when Disney, we kicked off the sabbatical.
Going camping.
Yeah, going camping at Disney Springs. So I know. So Disney Springs has I'm sorry, Disney Springs, Fort Wilderness. Thank you. Fort Wilderness. That's when we started going camping at Fort Wilderness, and so I feel like that even more emotionally. That's like our happy place.
It's our home.
It's our resting place because we associated that with rest, and so we've learned to rest, and we learned to trust in God more. We learned to have more faith in God. We learned to literally learn how to rest, and God took over the rest. Like, it was crazy seeing our finances, our marriage, the kids, the church, our life, our health. After that sabbatical and we started exercising regularly and then doing so many other things regularly. Listen, I used to get sick every year.
Yeah.
I used to get sick 2 times a year, hardcore, right? Very bad.
Yeah. Very bad,
twice a year, and every time it was always on Easter Sunday. For years. I preached sick on Easter Sunday for years. Could you imagine now?
No, I know.
With all showing up and I'm hacking up a lung. I could not get away with that now anymore. But I would, and after when we started doing the sabbatical, when we started doing that, I have not been sick for 3 years.
No.
Been sick. We have not been
super
sick
healthy
for a few years, ever since we learned to rest. And in fact, like right now that we're technically doing this on our Sabbath day, like this isn't work for us. We're just telling stories. Yeah. This is what we do all the time. And so this was the last 3 years we saw, and no wonder, because right around the sabbatical, we also took on youth group.
Yes.
Because this was around the same time. No wonder. That's why, we started doing the Sabbath. We started doing the Sabbath, and that was okay. But then we had to take on, hey, keep doing what you're doing with the English, but we need you to take over the youth group. And that pushed us over the edge. And because we didn't have the time, we could not do this. And that's when we took the sabbatical. That's when we're about to quit because we don't know what else to do. We weren't mad. We were just exhausted. We were frustrated. Like, we just didn't know. Like, we felt we hit to the end of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, but ever since that sabbatical we took, we've just seen God move.
God's been moving. I mean, just when I think back 10 years ago to seeing, just 6-7 people that we started out with, to now seeing the youth, how much it's grown, the church period, like right before we had to shut down the doors because of all this, we were pushing numbers we have never pushed before. Not that the numbers are the thing, but just to see that God was bringing people.
He was changing lives.
God was bringing people back that were with us a long time ago, that they started coming back, and God was bringing people that we had never even seen before. God gave me a vision a few years ago about different cultures different cultures and people from all types of nationalities coming to our church. And right before we shut down the church, and they were going to come in their national garments, and we had this Indian family walk in, and she was wearing her sari. I grabbed them like, it's happening! My vision is happening! Jesus is doing something. He's been giving us this vision, and that wasn't the only vision he gave us. He's given me another one that we feel like we're on the brink of that. Like, God is that vision is gonna come to pass here soon. I feel it.
Yeah, me too.
But this is just to see where we've come 10 years ago, and just what God has done. Like, we could not be where we're at if it wasn't for God. And I'm gonna cry again. And I just want to thank all of you guys that have been there and to support us, to pray for us, and a lot of you have become like our family. You guys come over, you play with our kids, you're there for us, and we couldn't do that without you guys, and you know who you are. We love you guys. You are our family. You guys are our family, and I just want to say thank you, because You guys know this isn't easy work, but you guys are so worth it. Like I say that all the time. Like this is not easy, but I want to keep doing it because I love you guys, and I I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna stop because I can't stop crying.
But and so I mean, for us, I know, and like we look back and I know that there's some amazing stories that we've that even so much more that I guarantee if we just kept on to talk some more, we can remember this.
Yeah, we would be here forever if we said every single story that ever happened.
And so I just remembered the day I had to baptize Troy. I can't. I do not have the permission to say how I did it. Other than the fact that he wanted to get baptized, we didn't have a means to do it. There's a detail that I'm gonna leave out, but he was so desperate. I'm like, bro, I think there's a bucket outside, and I literally just that was funny. I love that was probably one of my favorite baptism stories, and so. But there's so many people, so many faces that God has brought, come and gone here now, and I'm excited for the next 10 years. I'm excited for the next 10 years to see what God, because right now, even with everything, I think it's so interesting that, I think it's cool that even though, this whole thing just it stinks,
Yeah.
If it wasn't for obviously COVID-19, we'd be doing this in person. But the fact that it's happening around this time, it's literally like I believe the church as a whole is experiencing the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, and ours tends to fit right at that time right now, which I feel like we just kind of completed the first decade. We're gonna start the new section.
Yeah, I'm excited
the new
for what's
decade.
next.
I'm excited for the new
really
decade.
excited for what's
Even
next.
on my phone, like I took a post from Mike Todd on Crazy Faith. I got crazy faith that what, and I got crazy faith that in the 2020s we're gonna save more souls. More souls will be saved in the 2020s, and we're gonna give more money away than we ever did in the 2010s.
Yeah.
No, I said it
Yeah.
wrong. That we're gonna save more souls in 2020s than we ever did in the 2010s combined, and that we're gonna give away more money in the 2020s than we collected in 2010, the 2010s combined. That's a big one. Anyways, so but hey, that's what it's about. And so I'm praying for that. I'm praying to see God move, not just in us, through everybody, through people,
through
because
what is TGC, the church period,
Yeah,
the church across the world.
Oh yeah, for TGC family, man, because it's not about it's not the Tito and Alisha show. This is TGC family, putting it together. And so I'm excited to see, and to me, TGC family is not just the people who show up on Sundays.
Yeah.
Because to me, everybody that if you're TGC family, but you don't live in the same city anymore, you still family. That didn't change anything. You can't meet in the building anymore. That doesn't make you not. You are forever TGC family. And it's going to be interesting to see through the digital, through the personal, through the everything, what God's going to do through each and every one of us. And
Speaking
so
of Troy,
I know Troy just hopped on. I was just telling your baptism story, man. I loved it. It was one of my favorite ones over this last decade, dude. You're my favorite. I love it. And so we love you guys too. And that's the part that's going to be interesting, because we can end with this. Because we said, man, if we could do it all over again, right? What would we do different? And everything, and it's interesting too that we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary now. I just finished my master's as well, and that was kind of all culminating at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like this is chapter 2.
Yeah.
I feel like this is not too many people get a chance to say, if you could start all over again, what would it look like? And technically with this whole COVID-19, and it's like it feels like we're starting over. And so that part's exciting to see what God's gonna do through each and every one of you. And
we got a front row seat.
That's what I want.
To it.
So with that, all right, so I told you we're gonna pop some bottles, all right? So we have to on the 10-year, we have to. Let me
You got
see.
it, babe?
Man, hold on, this one's all weird. Let me get this one better. All right. And uh-oh.
Babe!
You wanna get a towel. I would recommend you get a towel. Just in case. All right, just in case if you're watching, some Martinelli, so chill, okay? This is apple cider. All right, but, okay. I can't make spills, okay? Alisha doesn't like, droppings or crummies or none of those. All right, so I want to make sure we do this right. All right, so hold on. And there we go. That wasn't that bad. All right, so there we go. So this is, all right. I mean, more than anything, I mean, the only reason why we're still here 10 years later, it's because of Jesus. No other reason. I mean, we're not here.
It smells so good.
We are not here, and all those lives that have been changed and are going to. It's not. Yeah, guys, come here. It's not because that we're any more special than anyone else. God only asked us to be. He says, "Hey, good and faithful." All right, not perfect, and that's not what he asks. Is good and faithful. And so sometimes faithful means, trusting when you don't know what else to do, or correcting something when you're not sure, forgiving God, including him in the process. So guys, come on, we're gonna sign off. We want you guys to join us. Hurry up. Come on. So, but with that, we obviously we're gonna cheer one thing, and we're cheersing, obviously giving God all the glory for all that he has done, is doing, and is still yet to do. So here's chapter 2. TGC family, ready? Let's go, chapter 2. All right. Y'all want to try it?
No.
It's not wine. It's apple juice.
Cider.
Oh, it's apple cider. Okay.
Yeah, see? Anyways. Anyways. All right, guys. Well, enjoy your rest of your Saturday. Tomorrow we're gonna keep going. We have a regular service, and then the Sunday after that. This is obviously Mother's Day tomorrow, but the Sunday after that we are gonna be back live at 9 a.m. Not pre-recorded, live and in person on May 17th. All right, we're not opening the doors yet, but we're definitely gonna be there live, and we're gonna start engaging with you guys in real time. So God bless you guys. Have a great rest of your Saturday. We love you.
Dad,